A reclusive man wishes to reconcile with his estranged daughter to prove he can do something right in his life before it's too late. Charlie, an English instructor, teaches online college writing courses but keeps his webcam off, claiming it's broken, even though he's really just ashamed of his appearance. On Monday, Charlie spends some personal time while watching a video of two men on his laptop when he suddenly suffers from chest pain. He tries to call his nurse friend Liz, but his phone falls to the floor. To calm himself down, he reads a Moby Dick essay out loud, just as someone knocks on the front door. Thinking it's Liz, he urges her to come in and help him, but to his surprise, the person who enters is a passing missionary named Thomas. With no choice, Charlie begs Thomas to read the essay to him. The missionary insists on calling an ambulance, but Charlie refuses and tells him to leave. However, Thomas wants to preach about his church, New Life, so Charlie asks him to pick up his phone and stay with him for a while in case he suffers another attack. Thomas asks what the essay is about, and Charlie explains he wanted to hear it one last time because he thought he was dying. Liz arrives to assess him and scolds him for not calling an ambulance, revealing his blood pressure is at 238/134. Charlie didn't call an ambulance because he was worried he'll never be able to pay off the expenses, especially since he had no health insurance. He then asks her to assist him to the bathroom. Thomas gawks at Charlie's massive size just as Liz learns he's from New Life and informs him that her adoptive father is one of the council members. She then reveals that New Life killed Charlie's boyfriend, elaborating that the church has only caused both of them pain, and asks Thomas not to return to the house again. When Charlie returns from the bathroom, Liz insists he goes to the hospital, seeing he has severe congestive heart failure and might die by the weekend. However, Charlie adamantly refuses. Meanwhile, Thomas, unable to read the situation, still wishes to preach, and an angry Liz orders him to get out. Afterward, Charlie and Liz argue about his refusal to go to the hospital, with the latter playfully threatening to stab him if he doesn't. As they watch TV, Charlie asks Liz to hand him a bucket of chicken to eat, which the nurse reluctantly does. Later that night, Charlie wakes to find Liz gone. Having memorized it by heart, he recites the Moby Dick essay as he prepares for bed. The following day, Charlie researches severe congestive heart failure and discovers that it needs immediate medical attention. Angry, he eats 2 chocolate bars to calm himself down but stops when he sees a bird by the window. Charlie then decides to call his estranged daughter Ellie to try to reconcile with her. Afterward, he takes a shower and leaves food for the bird. When Ellie arrives, she's stunned by his appearance. Desperate to bond with his daughter, Charlie offers to pay her money to spend time with him and even help her pass her classes. He plans to give her his entire life savings worth $120,000, but in exchange, he asks her to write for him because he believes she's intelligent. However, Ellie realizes it's pointless and is about to leave when she angrily orders her father to walk over to her without using his walker. Charlie attempts to do so but collapses under his weight, disappointing Ellie. Later, a man delivers pizza to his front door, and Charlie instructs the man to leave his order by the door. He then goes outside and watches the delivery guy drive away. Liz arrives, sees Ellie's essay, and berates him for seeing her. However, Charlie argues that he wants to see his daughter and help her pass school, but Liz is vehemently against it. Charlie shares that his daughter has no friends based on her Facebook profile, and they discover that she likes to take disturbing photos and write insulting captions. Liz then counters that Ellie isn't alone since she has her mom before handing him a sandwich. Moments later, Charlie chokes on a piece of food, so Liz quickly dislodges it and chastises him for not chewing his food properly. The next day, Charlie lectures his students on how to write a good thesis. Afterward, when Charlie's looking for a notebook, he finds an old framed photo of him and his partner. Charlie then tries to get a key from the top of the door frame, but he drops it, and it slides underneath the cupboard, which he can't reach. Later, Ellie comes to visit so Charlie can revise her paper. Her father tries to make her analyze the poem she wrote an essay for, but Ellie finds the poem stupid. Nonetheless, Charlie claims her point of view makes for an interesting paper, genuinely surprising her. Charlie then tries to ask about Mary, her mom and his ex-wife, infuriating Ellie. Charlie says it's okay for her to leave since he doesn't want to force her to stay, assuring her that he still plans to give her the money. Ellie reconsiders and shares information about Mary, surprised that he doesn't know where they live. He explains that he only asks her mom about her, and they don't speak about much else. Ellie then sees Charlie and his partner's photograph and asks when he became obese, claiming she has a right to interrogate interrogate him after the questions he asked her. Charlie hesitantly admits that he gained weight after his partner died, and Ellie vividly recounts him bringing his boyfriend over for dinner when Mary was away. She asks how his lover died, but a tearful Charlie refuses to disclose further and promises to write her essays if she writes anything for him. Charlie then excuses himself to the bathroom and cries, which Ellie overhears. Thomas arrives and is surprised to know Charlie has a daughter. They then discuss religion when Ellie suddenly takes his and Charlie's picture on her phone before she leaves. Afterward, Thomas tries to preach to him, but Charlie isn't interested. Nonetheless, Thomas insists on helping him in any way, so Charlie asks him to get the key that's fallen underneath the cupboard, which he then uses to unlock a bedroom door. Thomas tries to ask about his boyfriend being killed by New Life when Liz arrives with a special wheelchair to try and give Charlie a sense of independence. Liz orders to talk to Thomas outside, where she reiterates that he leave Charlie alone, but the missionary insists on giving him spiritual guidance. A tearful Liz reveals that her brother, Alan, was a New Life missionary who traveled to South America. He didn't want to come home because their parents wanted him to marry a woman from church whom they approved of. When Alan returned, he fell in love with Charlie, resulting in him getting kicked out of the church. Without New Life and his family, Alan felt he had lost his purpose, became depressed, and killed himself. Their father declared Alan's death an accident, still in denial about his son's anguish even after his death. Alan's passing also caused Charlie to spiral into depression, which caused his binge eating. Despite Liz's protests, Thomas asserts his mission is to save Charlie, angering the nurse, who believes that she's the only person who can help him. Suddenly, Charlie, who'd been listening the whole time, interrupts their conversation, and Thomas uses the opportunity to flee. Liz then departs for her night shift at the hospital. Later, Charlie tries to enter the bedroom that Thomas had unlocked earlier, but his wheelchair is too big to pass through the door. He then spots a Bible on the shelf, which makes him close the door. Later, the pizza delivery guy arrives outside his door, introduces himself as Dan, and says he felt it appropriate to know each other's names since he'd been delivering his food for a while now. As he's eating dinner, he notices the notebook he handed Ellie earlier and grabs it. Charlie's disappointed that she only wrote how she hates people, but his disappointment turns to delight when he realizes she'd written a haiku. However, the sudden excitement strains his heart, so Charlie recites the Moby Dick essay to calm himself down. He then tries to memorize her haiku and hugs the notebook to his chest. The following day, Ellie returns to get her revised papers when Charlie asks her to write more essays for him. He admits to being in a strange place when he married her mom and understands her anger with him, but advises her not to be bitter with the world. His words anger his daughter, who cites that he can't just reappear after 8 years to be her father after he abandoned her for Alan. She spitefully says she's grateful for him leaving because it taught her early on that the world is cruel. Ellie sits in a chair and looks away from her father before telling him he could have sent money to them, which he claims he did. He says Mary wouldn't allow him to see his daughter. Ellie retorts that he could have been part of her life, but Charlie argues that, given his appearance, not even she would want him around. Moments later, the teen offers to make sandwiches for them, and Charlie reminds her she's an amazing person. Both of them then look at the bird outside the window when Ellie notices how hard she's grinding the knife against the counter. Later, Charlie falls asleep after Ellie slips sleeping medication into his food. She then checks the unlocked bedroom, where she sees a photo of Charlie and Alan by the bookshelf. Thomas arrives, and Ellie offers him illegal substances to smoke with her when the missionary reveals he's tried it before and declines. However, Ellie threatens to give Charlie even more sleeping medication if the missionary doesn't do as she says. Ellie then interrogates Thomas and takes a photo of him as he smokes. Thomas asks her questions as well, but Ellie refuses to answer and outs him for pretending to be a New Life missionary. She says a classmate who's in the New Life church told her they stopped doing house-to-house work a year ago. Panicked, Thomas hides in the once locked room, so Ellie sits by the door and listens. Thomas reveals that he was a missionary back in his hometown in Iowa, and that his family treated him like an outcast when they caught him smoking illegal substances. While doing his due diligence for the church, he felt unfulfilled by handing out pamphlets to passersby. He started preaching door to door, but when he got into an argument with a church leader, he stole the congregation's money. Thomas then ran away, hoping to start his own mission, which is why he's now in Idaho going door to door. Unfortunately, he's almost out of cash and is afraid to return home because his parents might disown him. As Thomas opens up, Ellie secretly records him and realizes why the missionary is adamant about saving Charlie. Meanwhile, Thomas looks around the bedroom and opens the Bible, where he sees a photo of Charlie and Alan and a passage highlighting living according to the spirit and not the flesh. Liz then arrives with Mary, so Thomas quickly leaves. Liz tries to wake Charlie, but realizes Ellie gave him sleeping medication, angering the nurse. Afterward, Liz places Charlie on oxygen due to his rapid health decline, and reprimands Ellie for almost ending his life. When he wakes, Mary confronts Charlie about the money he plans to leave Ellie, which angers Liz because he could have gotten medical treatment with the cash, prompting her to storm off. Mary then orders Ellie to go, so Charlie tries to stop her, but his daughter callously screams for him to die. Charlie quickly hands Ellie her assignment and describes how good her essay is as she walks away. Mary then asks how he's been bonding with Ellie, and he gushes about how amazing she is. His positivity annoys Mary, but Charlie counters he's only trying to balance her cynicism. He then begins to cuff violently, leading Mary to ask why he never told her about his condition, and Charlie says she never asked. After arguing about Ellie flunking school, Mary tells him off for abandoning them, calling him selfish. She then admits she kept Ellie away from him because she was afraid he'd call her a bad mother, seeing how terrible their daughter has become. She then shows him her recent Facebook post where their daughter posted Charlie's pictures with an insulting caption. However, Charlie is unfazed and states Ellie is just honest. They then have a heated exchange over what Ellie has become, with Mary stating their daughter doesn't need their help. Mary apologizes for what happened to Alan, admitting she saw him before his death and saw how terrible he had looked. Seeing how severely her ex-husband is wheezing, Mary lays her head on his chest and listens to his breathing, while Charlie recounts their family beach trip years ago before finally admitting that he's dying. Charlie then asks her not to give up on Ellie, but Mary furiously reminds him he abandoned her first. Mary begs him to go to the hospital, but Charlie insists his life savings are for their daughter. Unable to take seeing her ex-husband in his state, Mary prepares to leave, while Charlie tearfully hopes Ellie will be the one confirmation he's done something right with his life. Afterward, Charlie finds that the plate he leaves out for the bird has been smashed when Dan arrives outside his door to deliver his pizza. Charlie then opens the door to get his food when he sees Dan standing outside waiting to get a glimpse of him. Dan is disgusted by his appearance and leaves immediately. This triggers Charlie to go on a severe binge eating episode, and in a fit of rage, he sends a profanity-laden email to his students, urging them to disregard their essays and to write something honest instead. After throwing up his food, Charlie cries just as Thomas arrives. He informs Charlie that after Ellie sent the recording of his confession to his church and family, they forgave him and wanted him to return home. Although they're unsure of Ellie's motives for doing what she did, they're both happy it helped Thomas. Thomas then hands him Alan's Bible and attempts to preach to Charlie. However, the hurt Charlie describes how much he and Alan loved one another, and reprimands the missionary for attributing Alan's death to his lifestyle choices. In retaliation, Thomas calls him disgusting, exposing his true feelings about the man. Charlie then instructs him to go home and to take Alan's Bible with him. The following day, Charlie reveals during his class that he's been replaced due to the email he sent. He then reads his student submissions out loud, and to reciprocate their honesty, he switches his camera on for the first time, shocking them with his appearance. Charlie tells them that the only things that matter are the honest things they've written, and ends his final lecture by haphazardly tossing his laptop to the floor. Liz returns to assess him and expresses anger at him for putting her in a difficult situation again. Charlie reveals that he tried to help Alan through his love, so Liz affirms he did everything he could but that Alan was never going to be saved. Liz believes no one can rescue anybody, but Charlie thinks otherwise, as Ellie saved Thomas, claiming people can be amazing. Ellie then storms in to confront Charlie when he sees her father dying. Liz refuses to leave them alone, but Charlie pleads to talk with his daughter one last time. Understanding his situation, Liz hugs him and goes outside. Ellie then accosts him for the essay he rewrote, citing it caused her to fail. Charlie then reveals that he replaced her assignment with a Moby Dick essay she wrote in 8th grade, claiming it's the best work he's ever read. Charlie tearfully apologizes for abandoning her, stating she didn't deserve it and that she's the best thing he's ever created. He then suffers another attack, and Ellie tries to leave to call an ambulance. However, Charlie begs her to read the essay to him one last time, and although she initially refuses, she gives in to his request. Charlie then uses his remaining strength to stand and walk towards his daughter without assistance, which he had failed to do days earlier. As Ellie finishes reading, she walks toward him, and they smile at one another. Charlie is then engulfed in light, and his last dying thought takes him back to their family beach trip.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.